Hey Nate, thanks for getting back to me with more video. Yeah, I'm glad we decided to do that because there's more stuff here that I didn't see in the first one. I did not have time to go back through the first one, so I'm going to repeat some of what I said here, but that's probably beneficial for everyone. But there's definitely some new stuff. So, yeah, let's jump into it. Okay. So, notes on filming. You did all of that. Awesome. Um, your camera person still pans a tiny bit to the left. Doesn't matter at all for this. It's totally fine. But as you get more advanced, you may want to tell them to hold the camera absolutely dead still or get a tripod. Because if I want to make little marks on things and reference where stuff was a time unit ago, that gets sloppy if the camera is moving. Doesn't matter for this, but if we want to get nitpicky in the future, a stationary camera is helpful. Okay, so my first note on your first video was that your X-step is a little bit long and your toes turned back a little too far. I believe that is still happening. Not sure if you made an adjustment or not, but it still needs to go farther. So you're landing with your toes pointed back at 45. That in and of itself is not necessarily a problem. Simon for sure does that. And Eagle for sure does that. And Eagle for sure puts his heel down, which is conceptually a no-no. But he gets away with it because he's Eagle and he plants like over here 7 feet away from his X step somehow. But most of us cannot get away with this. So when you set your heel down like this, it kind of shuts off your leg. Like you're not in normal up on the ball of the foot athletic mode anymore. You're kind of in deadlift athletic mode. And your heel is pointed too far back. So when your toe is pointed back and your heel is pointed back, your hips will also point too far back. So don't do that. So what are you going to do instead? So instead of putting your X-step toes back, you're going to do like an I-step kind of thing. So instead of this foot being here, oh no, Windows security. What do I do? Instead of this foot being here, you're going to arbitrarily make it 90. This will help keep your hips more neutral here. They won't be absolutely neutral, but they'll be closer. And you're going to stay on the ball of the foot. So the heel is not allowed to touch down. You're going to keep on the ball of this foot. You're going to keep the toes pointed this way, which is going to keep the knee pointed this way, which is going to solve a lot of your problems. So moving forward, what this leg position does is the only way you can get the hips to move forward from here is to either take this whole leg assembly and tip it down, which we don't want to tip for a lot of reasons that we won't get into right now. But when you have your reach back set in your head and you tip and you fall down into this foot, tipping changes where you are reaching back. So if your timing is perfect and your reach back peaks where you want it to right when you hit the ground, everything's fine, it's all good. But most of us don't do that. Our reach back peaks early. So you'll set your reach back thinking it's going to be here, and then you'll tip another 4 inches down, and that moves your reach back up 4 inches. And then you've introduced off axis, all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of like all of the stuff in the backhand form is like little errors. Like this isn't a problem unless you're also tipping. Reach back early isn't a problem unless you're also tipping. Like all these things layer on top of each other. And then we think we're doing everything right, but everything's just a little bit off, and all of those problems compound each other, and our throw doesn't ever do what we want it to do. So keep that straight. The easiest way to do that is to switch to doing an I step. So if your initial step was here, what I want you to do in practice, and this is what I'm doing on my throw, and I think it's actually helping a lot. It will make you theoretically lose some distance, but you'll be learning how to correct your form, which is way more important than shotgun distance that you have no idea where the disc is going to go, right? So you're going to put your other foot actually right behind. So your heel and your toe are going to be right next to each other. Keep it strict for a while and don't advance. So your X step is not going to advance at all. You'll be surprised once you start to get it how little it actually matters that your X step is advancing. Your form improving will do more for your distance and accuracy than having a long X step. So do it here a bunch, get used to that feeling, do that until it doesn't feel weird, and then add like a 6-inch step or even a 3-inch step, and then just gradually increase it. But make sure as you increase it, it's not screwing up your form. So stay here on the I step until your form feels better, and then start adding a next step back in. So that's my first point. Don't let your X step be long. Don't let your toes turn back. The second thing I noticed in this not backlit version is, go back up here to your address position. You can tell that there's something funky way earlier than you would think. So right here, there is something wrong. Look at the position of the disc. Perfect. Right below your pec line. What about the rest of your power pocket? Your elbow is 4 or 5 inches lower than your disc. And if we were to try to make a plane between those things, we couldn't do it. So your elbow to disc plane is, your shoulder to disc plane is here, right? Your elbow is not on that plane. So probably 90% of the time, if someone sets up with a address position like this that is not where their power pocket needs to be, they're going to do something funky. Accepting pros who can do whatever they want in the beginning because they know where their power pocket is and they know how to get everything back onto it. So while you are learning the muscle memory of what you want your power pocket to be, build your power pocket here in this phase of the throw how you want it to be exactly when you get over here. That way when you go to your reach back position, you are more likely to come back to this higher elbow power pocket that you want, right? So let's see if I'm a crackpot and you actually have a perfect power pocket. So your elbow's low, so I would assume there would be some kind of an elbow low situation at your pocket. So your reach back is a lot lower than your intended release, and your shoulders look relatively flat here. That's yellow flag. So that actually looks pretty decent. But you do have a decent amount of wobble too. And you kind of have a, because of the low reach back, you have a low to middle to the bisque is probably going higher than you want it to because of the low reach back. But your power pocket actually looks decent, which is high praise coming from me. But what is kind of funky about it is, there was something else too that I wanted to mention about it. But you're kind of shrugging a little bit. So you're getting a little pinched off here. I would like to see the elbow a little further ahead. So 90 degrees here is a good thing to shoot for. And I mean, maybe you're closer to 90 than I think because of the perspective. But outside of 90 is better than inside of 90. So a little bit more elbow drive, a little bit more active shoulder, I don't know what that motion is, shoulder adductors, I guess. I think that's right. Chris will tell me if I'm wrong. But you have a little bit of a shrug Here, like I can tell this shoulder is a little bit more active, a little bit higher than this one. And we kind of really just want this shoulder to mostly stay out of the way in our backhand throw. But the other thing that I see here that tells me that you're shouldering is look at your spine. It's slanted forward a decent, 10, 15 degrees. And we would rather see your hips a little bit further back at this point. So you're already like getting up too close to over the top of your brace. We'd rather see you a little bit more behind and your shoulders square on top of your hips. You will have about as much lean as you have here after release, but not before. So that just tells me that your brain is trying to put too much weight into the shoulder, which makes sense with your low reach back and your mid power pocket and your high release, that you're kind of just sending too much energy up that way. Okay, so that was a little bit of power pocket. Jumped ahead a little bit. But we got there because your elbow was low at address, and then we wanted to check where it is. So this, not quite here, but a little bit forward of here. Like that's what I want your address position to be in. So when you're back over here, setting up your shot, put your elbow on the plane that you want it to be on already. That should help get rid of the low reach back. Because if you're committed to this plane mentally for the whole throw, and you start on that plane with your elbow on that plane, then it's going to be easier to reach back on that plane. Easier to come back here without having gotten there from low, and then easier to not have the disc go too nose up or just pitch up on your release. Okay, so backing up. Let's look at another function of your X step. So watch your head. Watch the height of your head. Man, that's annoying. They just changed something about the Facebook player. Anytime I click on something other than this window, it pauses it. I feel like it didn't used to do that. So your head goes up and it comes down. And that's because of this heel. So you have a hop in here that cannot possibly be doing any good. So you're flat-footed on your initial step, and then because your X step is so long, you're doing this little hop to make it fluid, but then you drop down onto the heel. So you spent all this extra energy and all this extra potential unbalancing your footwork and your center of gravity for no gain because you've dropped back onto this foot. So what I want to see instead of the hop is you're going to, just talk through it. Being down on this step flat is fine. But on your X, I want it, again, shorter for sure, and preferably just do the I-step thing for a while. But whatever you do, it's choose your own adventure on that to some extent of how picky you want to be about this, or how in-depth you want to. Do you want to like screw up your throw, your footwork to make it better in the long term, or are you just playing for fun and you're not that worried about it? Totally up to you. Both are acceptable choices. But stay up on the ball of this foot. So your height is going to go from low to high, and then it's going to stay high until you get into the brace. And you want that transition to not be so much down or tipping, but as lateral as you can get it. And that's kind of a weird, hard thing to figure out, but I can give you some more videos. Or I think I already gave you the Luco stuff, right? That's probably the best way to start to figure that out. But you're dropping your weight down here, and then because of your bend in this knee, because the toe's back, like you have to bend to get forward, then you have to start lifting out of that, and your hips come up, and your hips are coming up all the way through the brace. So you don't get down under your brace like all the pros do. You're just swinging your hips forward continuously. So if you watch the hips the whole way, they're just always progressing forward. So they're just always creeping forward, creeping forward, creeping forward. Now you're bracing and they're still going forward and up, and they're still going forward and around. So what you would rather see, what you see at a pro level or at even a high level, amateur level, the brace heel hits, the front leg stiffens up, and that momentarily stops the hips, where all of the hip rotation happens right here while the hips are down and behind the brace. Then only the weight of the left leg bouncing over this way and then back this way is what tips you up. So you're tipping up and taking a decent step forward. Like, it's not bad, you're not out of balance, but you do have too much momentum in your body after the brace because of your tipping up on top of your brace thing. So the loop go stuff will help with that a lot. Doing standstills and one legs and getting the feel for the rear leg counterweighting your tilt will help a whole lot. I realize that doesn't make sense. Let's go over that some more. Yeah. So, what's the best way to do this? Okay, so this time just look at your rear leg. This is another choose your own adventure scenario of how deep do you want to go into this stuff. So watching this rear leg here, it goes little scoop and pretty much starts going straight forward with a toe drag. Okay, so look at footage of Drew Gibson from behind. I'll just draw you a quick little picture for the fun of it. So when Drew throws from behind, if this tree is his center line, he plants here with his X step having been here, and his weight shift stays on center pretty much. So this weight in this leg doesn't just immediately go forward down the target line. It goes very much to the right first. This is key to elite distance and to some extent key to a lot of consistency, because that leg going over here allows his body to stay on a hyzer tilt and him to not fall over. So a hyzer tilt is good. I'm still working out exactly why it's good and a concise reason to do it, but all the pros do it pretty much full stop. I've asked people to find me counter examples and no one has chimed in so far. But I don't know of anybody who throws elite distance and is upright. So everyone has a decent hyzer tilt to their shoulder, which means that when the disc is at full reach back, their front shoulder will be low, their rear shoulder will be high. When the disc is in their power pocket, their shoulders will be level. And then in their follow through, when you're looking at their shoulders from 90 degrees again, their trailing shoulder will be low and their follow through throwing arm will be high. So the throwing shoulder goes from low to middle to high, and the trailing shoulder goes from high to middle to low. So hopefully that makes sense. A little bit convoluted. But back over here, the hyzer tilt thing. So this is the brace leg. This is your counterweight leg, and this is your torso. This leg being a counterweight and the hyzer tilt is kind of what allows for the possibility of your hips staying down behind the brace. If you stay upright, like you're doing, your rear leg just goes and kind of gets stuck behind your front leg. That's why you end up toe dragging, because there isn't somewhere for your rear leg to go. When you commit to this tilt and have a good offset from your brace to your X step, that's what lets the rear foot go behind to this position where it can counterbalance. You can just twist better on this axis. If you try to twist upright without an offset, you can't do it because you don't have an offset. Like your feet are in line. So there's no good way to get torque. So we can nerd out on that harder if you want to, but hopefully that is clear enough that you can get the gist of it. So the point is make sure you're offsetting enough, which let's take a look at your feet. So you have a decent offset. Like I wouldn't complain about that in and of itself, but the rear foot is indicating that your weight shift isn't going in the right direction. So if either you need more offset or you need to commit to the idea that from where your X step starts, you are not shifting weight directly into the plant foot. You need to keep your weight going targetward so that your plant goes that way. Because if you're bracing here and all your momentum is on the target line, then any part of your body that was on this side of the target line is going to go that way when you brace, right? That's the key. Loop goes one leg drill will help with that, and then loop goes one step will help integrate that into a more realistic brace. Ask questions if it doesn't make sense. Your pocket looks pretty good, but the shoulder shrug, we talked about that. We talked about your shoulders slipping forward. So one more little minor note. I wouldn't suggest working on this yet, but just to make you aware of it whilst I have your attention. Just look at your offhand for this whole throw. So it's coming down by your hip, your elbow's bent. It kind of just hangs out, swings behind you a little bit, comes in rotationally, and then hangs out by your side. Very much kinda. You've got the idea, and again, this is fine for now. But when you get everything else dialed in to an extent, spend some time looking at your offhand. I really like Drew Gibson's thing. It's very easy for me to do and conceptualize. So try to copy him. There is, I believe, a video that Trent did. He's the guy from Slingshot Disc Golf that talks about off arm as a 4-beat thing. See if you can find that video. If not, I can walk you through it. I really like that. If you don't like that, copy Macbeth. He's pretty solid. I've heard he's good. But his off-arm motion is pretty easy to replicate too. It makes a lot of sense. So there's some nuance in that one, but just generally more active in the arm and more intentional about getting it close to your body during the rotation. All right, that's all I got. Please ask questions if any of that doesn't make sense, and good luck to you, sir.